All right, I'm going on and on. But what I'm getting at here is simply that the Christian experience is very different than your, I think, caricature of it. So if we're going to get away from cartoon belief, I'd like to see my belief. I don't mind having them criticized, but I'd like to see them criticized in the way that I articulate them and defend them.
Thank you, Dennett. Well, is there a question for Professor Dennett?
Thank you. I sort of have what is sort of, I think, a logical... Is it on? Okay. I sort of have what I would think is a logical follow-up to the last question. And my question is tying it also to the idea of Pascal's wager. So Pascal's wager, as I see it, as you've proposed it, is predicated on the idea that there are two options. There's closeness to God and or disbelief and belief. My question, though, is, when you have Christians who tell me that the only way to heaven is through belief in Jesus Christ, and you have Muslims telling me that the only way is through a set of beliefs in Muhammad, and Jews or Buddhists or any other belief telling me their belief is the only valid belief structure, don't you have to at least reevaluate Pascal's wager to the point where the logical option is at least agnosticism and at most atheism?
Yeah. I'd put the point even more strongly. If we're talking about rationality, why don't you bet on all of them at once? If it's really, if one wager is good, we'll go for all of them, and that way you got all your bases covered.
Well, that's not rational, because these religions do make some mutually exclusive claims. But I would say quite seriously that if you're taking your point seriously and following it, the conclusion is not. I mean, look, let's look by analogy. We conduct a survey of all the world's cultures, okay, tomorrow, and I ask them only scientific questions. What do you think about Kepler's laws? What do you think about evolution? What do you think about Einstein? I submit to you, we will get a wide range of answers. Many people may say, well, you know, I've listened to the arguments, I'm going to go with Ptolemy on that one. Well, I've listened to all this, I think old Einstein was basically joking. So you might get the vast majority of the world's people go thumbs down on Darwin, thumbs down on Einstein. But you don't go from that, well, you know what? The disagreement of all these different cultures clearly convinces me that there's no true answer. I will be an atheist and agnostic on these issues from now on. You would see that as a total non sequitur. Why? Because you believe that there is a right answer and it's your job to find out what it is. So if you follow your premise seriously, yes, the religions of the world have certain common elements, common morality. Many of them today, at least, posit a monotheistic creator. And I would say it's your job to go find out which one is making true claims. Spend some time and take it seriously, and then decide what you think is the right way to go. I'm not asking you to go any other way than what you think is right, but to just in a facile way go, there's 10 of them, and they can't all be right, so I'll choose none of the above. That's not a very rational solution.
Another question for you. I'm sorry that all the questions are going to you. Personally, I'm a little bit worried by almost the ease of God as a response. God is almost defined, or God is generally defined as outside the human sphere of consciousness. God is invisible. God is not in one particular place. If we search the entire universe, we could not possibly find God. I feel like this definition of God as completely outside the human realm of testing is a simplification, or not a simplification, but too easy of an answer.
Well, do you mind if I ask you a question or two in response? Okay. You experience an external world, right?
Yes.
But the external world you experience is experienced through the lenses of your 5 senses.
Yes.
Can you give me an independent proof that the rest of us could accept that your experience of the external world actually corresponds with the external world out there? Can you prove that?
I probably could not.
Okay. You know, you accept the existence of other people, other minds, other souls, other people out there, right? You believe that there are other people in the world. You're not the only guy on earth, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you think you can give independent demonstration that doesn't rely on your own subjective consciousness at all, since we can't see that other minds actually exist?
I think it's going to depend on my subjective consciousness.
Exactly. All right. So there are large spheres of human experience, consciousness, love, morality, that rely on the subjective dimension of human experience that can never be produced under a microscope and under a telescope, and yet you couldn't live 1 second or 1 day without them. Your whole, in fact, far from matter creating mind, isn't it true that the entire experience, our entire experience of the world comes through our consciousness, which is an irreducible starting point of all experience. Without that consciousness, we have no window into external reality at all. True?
True.
Okay. And yet, all of that you take for granted as having an independent existence. You go through life perfectly willing to accept consciousness, reality, other people. But somehow when it comes to God, your standards change completely. Suddenly you go, oh gee, I've sent people into outer space. I haven't seen any big man with a beard out there handing out stuff. So how can I really believe in that guy? That's all I'm saying to think about.
I think the slip in what you just said is in saying that consciousness is irreducible. Consciousness is where each one of us starts, of course, with our own experience. But then, thanks to our developed scientific worldview, we can pool the experiences of others. Of course, we need our own experience to do that. And then we can turn that tool back on ourselves, and we can study our own subjectivity. We can study our own consciousness. We can have theories of human consciousness. We can understand what makes us tick. And there's nothing irreducible about it. We are on the, of all things to say, at this point in the 21st century, when we are making such tremendous progress in understanding the machinery, if you like, of consciousness, that strikes me as just preposterous.
Yeah, okay. My question is about intelligent design and evolution. Where do you stand, each of you, on the issue? Was God a product of intelligent design, or did he evolve?
Was God a product of intelligent design? No, I think he was. Okay. Well, I think some concepts of God are a product of human design. I think that is some conceptions of God are very clearly contrived by individual human contrivers. Some religions, I mean, Scientology is a religion. It's entirely the result of human, deliberate design. Whereas other religions, like Christianity, say, and more generally, is itself a product not of intelligent design, but of evolved design, culturally evolved design, where most of the design moves, most of the R&D was unwittingly done by humans passing on their traditions in the same way that languages are unwittingly designed. So I think that the concept of God is indeed a product of that sort of process, in the same way that the harmonic scale is a product of that sort of process. As far as the intelligent design movement in America, that's just a hoax.
Next question. Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. Einstein's laws are the product of intelligent design, but it in no way follows from that they don't describe a reality and a reality independent of those laws. So you're committing a genetic fallacy in saying that because human beings have conceived of the idea of God, therefore it's a made-up idea. It doesn't follow at all. Human beings could well have conceived of it, and it could well be describing an independent reality. Now, I don't agree with intelligent design in the way that it's mostly understood as basically a way of fighting with Darwin. Did the eye evolve, and did the dog and the wolf have a common ancestor, and so on. That's not my argument. My argument is that the validity of the intelligent design argument is completely valid when applied to the universe as a whole. And here's a very brief analogy to illustrate that. If you and I were walking on the street and we saw a car, an automobile, we would